23rd of January 2025. That overcast sky was one ripe for driving. The early hours of the afternoon were cloaked in those transitioning time light where sun becomes moon and vice versa. I hung around a parking lot outside a small shopping village similar to those of which I grew close to. I didn't have a reason to be there. I guess I was just soaking up the lack of sun. However, I saw a familiar face leaving the shopping center. A friend, awkwardly holding his folded electric scooter. "Do you want to ride?" I asked, noticing his struggles. It's the least I could have done, considering he was moving to London, and I felt like I hadn't done as much as I could have to be there for him. "Yes," he responded in a unexpectedly quiet and simple manner. It felt like a murmured breath of a word, one that people project with intention of going unheard. I stepped out of the car with intention to help my dear friend, but I noticed a few more familiar faces, those who were in my friend group, and, weirdly enough, my Year 12 English teacher. Both me and my friend got distracted. After all, we're together, right? Our friend group, together. Why not make the most of it? Before delving into the shops, I had a short conversation with my English teacher, who I didn't expect to find. Next to my parallel parked car, a small group of large dead wasps lay near the sprout of a mid-century light post, though they resembled something closer to a cockroach. I was aware that there had been a recent infestation of wasps in the area, well, just a couple of wasp nests, and I also knew that the pest control had been to eradicate them. I let out a small yip when I saw them, because they caught me off guard. While still dead, their size, which was comparable to a large cockroach, was alarming enough. I watched as my English teacher picked one up, which left me confused, but she followed her action with the sentence, "They were killed pretty harshly." I didn't know what to say to that. I nearly felt bad for the wasps. Upon asking where we should go, I, knowing that one of 3 main shopping center locations is a very boring school supplies store, said anywhere is fine. Someone in my friend group suggested going to the boring school store, and I let out a high-pitched, eh. At this point, we were in the light and wide entrance hall that was gilded with sea-themed posters, adverts on blue and white walls. I turned to my English teacher with both of us on a protruding bench seat and said, "So you know how I said all 3 were fine? Yeah, that was metaphorical. Hyperbolic, not metaphorical, but I knew I got it wrong." I wanted to converse more with my final high school English teacher, but to not be left behind, I went with my friends on our little shopping spree. We finished and headed to a friend's house. Their house was small, darkened by the black furniture and walls. We were on a second story, one with black metal flooring and black metal railing that overlooked the main room of the small apartment. The second story featured scattered items, which was there with intent to add comfort and protection to the hard flooring. The mood here was darker. One of my friends was taking care of a deceased mother's problematic child. She had only recently passed from a disease, and she was very close to the friend taking care of the child. We tried our best to keep happy, but when the child said that he wants his mother, it was hard to keep up the facade. Eventually, the scene changed. I'm with a new couple friends, only 3, and like stepping into a theater, I became embraced by a nighttime snowy tundra that enveloped all horizons but an ocean coast far in front of me. I was dreaming. I knew I was. I saw a zipline, and my friends did too. Without hesitation, 2 of them jumped on the zipline that was short but ran parallel to the coast. We were at a small elevation compared to sea level. My friend, who didn't jump on the zipline, pulled out her phone and began recording. I nearly commented on the fact her flash was just obscuring the video's footage and it was just casting a layer of light onto the snowy falls and fog. But I held back my critique when I noticed it was illuminating far further than what I thought a camera could have done. After the zipline, I conversed with my 3 friends I found myself with. I said, "Even here, the snow that you guys are enjoying just feels like sand for me. It's just sand. As if from my friend's point of view, the snow was real, as from mine I simply walked through white sand, as the feeling of snow was and still is foreign to me. I talked to them as if I was a ghost, living out their snowy tundra experience while I could only join with what my mind understands, like we're far, far apart. Approaching the coast, I said one line which I knew my friend would enjoy because I used a word I promised to use to him. My sand compared to your snow is lackadaisy in comparison, though I knew after I said it I meant to have used the word lackadaisical. Eventually, after meaningful chit-chat, I found myself on the coast, alone, and noticed something that was rhythmically touched by the sea's hands. A gravestone. I approached. I thought to myself that I should remember the words on it when I woke up. But there were more. I realized after reading the first one, more and more gravestones appeared on the beach. It felt meaningful, yet I didn't know why. I ran to each, but kept going back to the first one because I knew that I would only be able to remember the text of one. Each one had unique writing, varying in length. Ones that sounded like newspaper titles or locations to names. Yet, I just tried to remember the first one, even though I regret it now. During my exploration, I began to feel myself waking up, but I was determined to keep looking through the gravestones. Even once, a sculpted pillar that shot kilometers into the sky appeared. Maybe it had been there the whole time. I was on the right side of the obelisk-like structure, and faintly through the pillar, I saw the ghosts of two of my friends appear and disappear. With unexplainable tears in my eyes, I ran to the other side of the pillar to see numerous framed paintings leaned up against the pillar in the sand. The last two still being placed by nothing. The last two were from my friends. I couldn't see what they were, as I told myself I'd only try to remember one thing. However, I remember the style, an old-looking faded brown oil painting, and while I only saw a little bit of the top half, I think it was a scenic painting, like one of rural England. However, I remember no more from the actual dream as I began to feel myself going into sleep paralysis. The first gravestone, I only ended up remembering a little bit of the text. In a sort of Victorian font, quite loopy, it said, Germany H word. I think it said, used in Gen Z. All that ignoring for half a weird newspaper title. The sleep paralysis was weird and quite frustrating. I've never and still have never seen anything during my sleep paralysis. I tried my familiar strategy of closing my eyes and trying to jolt myself awake as I wanted to get the dream down as quickly as possible. And the sleep paralysis was so toilsome. When I eventually got out the first time, I instantly fell back asleep and went into it again. I learnt my lesson the next time and fully awoke. Dream end. I don't know what to say about this. It was weird. It was detailed. I mean, it was a lot. I wrote down a lot. It took me 1.5 hours to write, and I coalescence of a lot of things. I know my friend was actually moving to London, and snowfall has always been a really significant scene in my dreams. It's like I feel nostalgic for it, despite the fact that I've never experienced it. I can name you so many more dreams off the top of my head which featured snowfall in a nostalgic manner. And every one, it was nighttime. And I never felt cold. And you could chalk that up to the fact that I was warm and comfortable in my bed sheets in real life, but I've still felt cold in dreams. It's weird that snowfall never brings that. And that weirdest part, the weirdly sophisticated sentences that I kind of expelled out during that scene was interesting. My sand is lackadaisical in comparison. It's because that's all I knew. I think my body was trying to come up with a substitute for snow, but all it could muster was the feeling of sand. And I don't want to say it made me sad, but it did feel like I was missing out. I said it numerous times, it was different to what my friends was experiencing. I was merely a ghost as if I wasn't really there, sharing the same experience, yet so far away. The time of recording this is September, a solid 8 months after I actually wrote this dream down, and all of the imagery and sentences are stuck in my head. I remember the friends that were there, especially the main one that I saw. Remember the face of my high school English teacher picking up the wasps. It was strange. I remember the inside of the shopping village. The walls were cut in two, basically. The top half being white and the bottom half being a slightly faded, painted dark blue. Laminated posters in plastic frames. And the sadness of my friend's despair in that house, or apartment, I should say. I probably should add that that hadn't happened. I don't have a friend who's looking after a deceased mother's child. Most of the other things were actually based in actuality. I did actually talk to my friend about using lackadaisical or lackadaisy in a sentence. And my friend was actually moving to London. He has now, and is settling in quite nicely, so that's a plus. But I think a lot of that sorrow was grounded in something more than just neurons firing while my eyes are moving a lot. That analogy of walking into a theater for the nighttime tundra scene was used because my brain made that connection. That feeling of walking into a cinema, it's nostalgic. If anyone's been to Team Labs in Tokyo, when you're walking between the exhibits and you're alone in a hallway lit by dim lighting that is basically only on the floor, lighting up the occasional fading circle, that is what it felt like, that transition. At this point, I had been to Japan, so it could be my brain's sort of recollection of that, but there was no visual of that. It was just the sensation. I'm gonna be doing more of these retrospectives and dreams because I have a lot. And most of them of equal detail. It's just that this one has stuck with me for so long that I felt like I needed to put it somewhere. I mean, other than a notes app on my phone, or in other cases, written in a raggedy old textbook. I've been listening to the Magnus archives. That's probably why it's formatted like this. I don't know when the next upload is going to be, but this is just a space for me to say the random shit my brain decides to actualized during REM. Bye bye.